Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Our Home Ground, where the women's game feels personal and powerful. I'm really excited to be back with another episode and back a little bit to my normal schedule, although I'm traveling for the next 2 weeks, so it's not going to be the normal schedule. So don't get used to it until February. But, anyways, we're back this week on a Wednesday, so that's really exciting. Per usual, there is lots to talk about. Several of the European leagues are back over the weekend, so we'll talk about some of that. We'll talk a little bit about Kyra Cooney-Cross and her current situation. We're going to talk about Jess Carter and the case surrounding the racist abuse that she endured over the summer during the Euros. We'll go through a bit of an injury update. It's mostly WSL focused, but throw in a couple of other players as well. And then we'll briefly discuss the absurdity that is Qatar being considered as a host for the Women's Club World Cup, but I barely even have the words for that. So let's just dive right in. To begin with, I want to talk about Kyra Cooney-Cross and her family and her mom's medical situation. So, Kyra shared on social media late last week that she is back in Australia as her mom, Jess, has been diagnosed with stage 4 cholangiocarcinoma, which is a rare, aggressive form of a bile duct cancer. And my heart absolutely goes out to Kyra and her family during this time. I can barely even imagine the sort of shock and pain that they must be experiencing right now to get this kind of diagnosis. Her mom has to be quite young because Kyra is quite young. And so it's just has to be so much for them. When she shared it on social media, she also shared a GoFundMe to help support her family while they're navigating this, help cover her, I believe it's her stepfather's time off work. Obviously, her mom can't work. Just the things that the world keeps going that you just can't even deal with when you have such a sick loved one. And I was just shocked by the number of footballers who shared this on their social media, like prominent names who are not just her Arsenal and Matilda's teammates. So many Lionesses shared it, Chelsea players, Aston Villa, I'm pretty sure Rachel Daly shared it. So many people who really don't know Kyra, or at least publicly aren't associated with her. And so I just thought that was really special because some things are just bigger than football. And this is obviously one of those things. Then over the weekend, there was also an outpouring of love and support from Arsenal and the Arsenal community during the fan walk from the meetup spot at the pub to the stadium. The fans stopped under the iconic tunnel where, they often stop, and they held up lettered signs that spelled out, "We love you, Kyra and Jess," which was really sweet. Then when all of the Arsenal players came on the pitch, they were wearing Kyra's jersey. So instead of the normal warm-up top, they were wearing the Arsenal home kit with Kyra's name and number on the back, which I thought, again, was very, very sweet. A clear show of support from them. And then finally, in the 32nd minute of the game, which Kyra wears number 32, the fans did they all stood up and clapped for the full minute, which very sweet, very moving, and just really appreciated that Arsenal and Arsenal, the team itself, and the broader community was trying to show their support. And I really hope that the team and Arsenal sort of organization continues to support her in whatever way she needs. They did exercise extending her contract for a year, which I think is really lovely. I saw some stuff being like, that's weird that they're even talking about her contract right now. Otherwise, if they didn't sort of exercise that 1 year option, then she would also be thinking about potentially contract negotiations and all this stuff, which she just doesn't need right now. So for now, she knows that she's still with Arsenal for a year. And so I think that's really great. And I hope that they continue to support her in whatever way is best for her, whether she decides to come back and play right now or if she wants to stay home in Australia, whatever it is. I hope that they can just help her move through this the best way possible. Another thing that I want to talk about is the Jess Carter of it all. We've talked about this situation several times on this podcast. She spoke out about the racist online abuse that she was receiving during the Euros, and one of the people was identified, charges were brought against him, and they went to court. The man, I'm not even going to say his name because there's no reason for us to be saying his name, did admit to sending the messages. And then his sentencing, I believe, is at the end of March. The FA put out a statement sharing this information and included a statement saying, quote, "Our priority remains supporting Jess and all of our England players who continue to be impacted by disgusting online abuse. We are committed to working closely with the police and relevant authorities to ensure that perpetrators are held to account." I think that's great from the FA. I wish they were doing more. I think we talked about this on one of the last episodes before Christmas, that there's just so much online abuse happening, whether it's racist, sexist, homophobic, like any and all of the above that's happening. And I think the FA can do more. I know that the FA doesn't actually own the WSL anymore, so there's like a little bit of like who's in charge there, but there's always more I think that the FA can do. This is simply the start, and to put out a statement like this is great. And let's do more. Like, let's stop this from happening again. It is obviously horrific that Jess endured any of and all of these things. And I'm happy that the man is being held accountable and that the FA seems to be engaged in starting to do more. But obviously, I'm going to ask for more from them. So, those are those two things that I wanted to talk about at the start, at the top of the episode, because again, this show is, it feels weird to call it a show. It is, it's a podcast, is about more than just like what's happening on the pitch. There are plenty of places you guys can go for that, but I just want to highlight some of the like human elements always that are going on in and around the game. And unfortunately, those aren't always happy. There are a lot of beautiful things that are often happening that are really fun to talk about. And then there's stuff like this that is just not fun to talk about, but still necessary. And we need to be bringing it to light. There's that. We'll do a little bit of a transition here to talk about some games over the weekend. So the WSL was back for the first time since before Christmas. And so we'll run through some of those highlights really quickly and some things that came out of those games. First, on Saturday, Man United played Arsenal at the Emirates, ended in a 0-0 draw, even though Man United's Jade Riviere got a red card in the 65th minute. So they went down to 10 players for almost half an hour. It was annoying as an Arsenal fan. I think it was kind of annoying as a United fan too, for just different reasons. Arsenal dominated on the ball, especially when United went down to 10 players, but they just weren't ruthless in the box. I really don't feel like they seemed dangerous. The only thing that was dangerous was just like the amount of possession, not necessarily any of the like attacks that were happening. The commentators did say, and I do tend to agree, that Man United might be the one of the worst teams that you want to go down to 10 players, because they tend to have a really good mid or low block, and that's exactly what they did, and that's really difficult to play against. But that is just the reality of what happened. I think the really interesting thing that came out of this match is this discussion about goalkeepers stopping play for supposed injuries that just so happened to be at a very tactically convenient time. Generally, if play is stopped for an outfield player, that player has to step off the pitch and wait. And that was kind of a newer thing that was introduced to stop these sort of like tactical timeout kind of injuries. But the goalie is the one exception for that. And so I want to be clear to start that this is not hate towards Fallon Joyce in any way at all. This is a strategic part of the game that almost every goalie utilizes. And so I don't think this is anything like personal against her. So please know that. I just think in this game it was incredibly obvious. And I don't know that it needs to not be incredibly obvious because they're allowed to do it. So I don't know how I feel about it. But the first time that she could go down after the red card, she did. And that allowed Man United to like come together with the coach, make a plan about what they were going to do since they only had 10 players. And that's annoying to me as an Arsenal fan. I will say that Fallon Joyce did get a yellow card for time wasting about 12 minutes after the red card, but that was for like not restarting play right away. But I do wonder if there was already like a little bit of annoyance there from the referee, but who knows? I don't actually know. So, yeah, I think that's just interesting. It's annoying and frustrating as an opposing fan. I think it's really smart on Fallon Joyce's part. And like, utilize the rules. Like she wasn't breaking any rules. So I don't know. It just felt annoying and like painfully obvious. Like usually you can kind of be like, maybe they were actually injured. It didn't seem like that was the case, although United's coach did say that she needed treatment. He like defended her in the post-match press conference. But there's that. Two things that did happen in this game as well that I want to talk about, which I don't know what to do with the middle of the transfer window and games happening. So I'm just going to say these things here. There were two debuts of transfers that came in during this January window. So Leah Schuler made her debut for United. She signed to United from Bayern Munich. So this was her first appearance with them. Seemed to be a pretty good outing. And then also Smilla Holmberg made her debut for Arsenal, coming on for Emily Fox. She signed from the Swedish club Hammarby in this January window as well. So that was exciting. Fun to see new players in the WSL. I feel like they both had pretty good outings. Leah Schuler got subbed on, and then about less than 5 minutes later, the red card happened. She's a forward, so it made it difficult for her to really have any opportunities to like do anything just based on logistics. But that still did happen, and that is exciting. So that's the end of that game. I'm not going to talk about all the other games in as big of detail, A, because I'm not fans of those teams, and B, I just felt didn't see as many like talking points coming out of these ones. Chelsea beat West Ham 5-0. I don't think that was a surprise to anyone. City beat Everton 2-0. Again, doesn't feel like a surprise. Aston Villa beat Brighton 2-1, which those are two like middle of the table teams, so that was an interesting game to watch. Tottenham beat Leicester City 1-0, and there actually is a talking point in this game, and it's funny because Tottenham won off of a Leicester City own goal. And that own goal was caused or like was credited to Ashley Neville, who during this January transfer window left Tottenham and went to Leicester City, but then she accidentally scored for Tottenham while she was on Leicester City. So just like certainly less than ideal. She accidentally scored an own goal against her former club of like 5 days before that. So just football can be so cruel. At least this way it was in like a comical kind of cruel way, but just certainly not ideal. And then final game of the weekend, Liverpool and London City Lionesses tied 0-0. I'm so confused by Liverpool, honestly. Like, I don't understand why they can't win games because they look like a pretty good team. I will say, and we'll get to this in a little bit, one of their best players was unavailable due to injury. So I think maybe that's part of it. But just overall, like, they weren't winning games in the first half of the season. London City did get rid of their coach at the end of the first half of the season, and they have a new coach. So I think maybe that's part of it. Although sometimes you see like a new coach kind of like bounce back. So, anyways, I didn't watch that game, but just results wise, like Liverpool is confusing to me. So, there's that. For the final game that I want to talk about, it's not WSL related because I already talked about all of those, but Barcelona beat Madrid CFF 12-1. Yes, I said 12-1. Like that is just an absolutely ridiculous scoreline. And it just proves that Barca still is exactly who they've always been. And it's just wild, honestly. 12-1. Like that's so many goals. And they're a scary team, and that's just the reality. They have so much talent, so much goal scoring ruthlessness. Like they're never going to stop. Like you would think a team would lay off like after being up like 6-0. They went up, I think, like 7-0 at halftime. Like it was actually crazy. So there we go. But I think this also speaks to like the difference in competitiveness between leagues. 12-1 is not a competitive scoreline, no matter how you slice it. But you could argue that Chelsea's 5-0 is not a competitive scoreline either. So I don't know. All right, moving on to the next thing, a bit of an injury update. I'm going to run through some of the highlights as I cannot possibly do a comprehensive list of all of the active injuries. It's the middle of the season. This is pretty WSL focused, honestly, because that's the easiest league to find information on. There are multiple websites that track WSL injuries that are really, really easy to access. The other ones, you kind of have to like know the teams or know the players and know that they have gotten injured and then like actively follow up on that. We'll start with the WSL. There are a couple of players that I've included who are not in the WSL. We'll get to those at the end. So for Arsenal, Chloe Kelly is still not available. She has this like weird knee injury situation. They haven't actually said exactly what it is. I'm sure they know what it is, but she's still rehabbing. And she doesn't yet have a return date, but we'll see about that. Daphne Van Dumselaar, the goalie, is reportedly really close to being back, but wasn't available over the weekend. There is good news for Arsenal on the injury front. Kim Little is back and available to play a lot of minutes. She was back before Christmas with a little bit more limited minutes. She's fully back now, which especially considering Kyra not being available for the foreseeable future, that's going to be really important. And then Leah Williamson played her first full 90 since the Euros final over the weekend. So I think that's really good news clearly for Arsenal fans, but I think for the game at large, she is so talented. And so having players like her come back from injury is really, really exciting. Moving to Chelsea, Kadisha Buchanan, who tore her ACL last season, rejoined team training for the first time over their preseason camp in Portugal. So she's not fully back into team training. She's still doing some team training and some individual training, but that's exciting for her trajectory. Natalie Bjorn, one of their center backs, is still doing rehab on a thigh injury. And Sonia Bonpastor said that she's not expecting her to return in this block of games. I don't know actually when this block of games goes through, but I saw online that if she said not this block, that means not until like March. So I'm not sure exactly when she's expected to be back. Myra Ramirez, who is a striker for Chelsea, who has been out for a long time with a hamstring injury, is back at Cobham finally. Like she hasn't been there potentially all season. I don't know where she's been doing her rehab, but they're still sort of evaluating and they have no set return date for her or even set return to like team training for her. So there's that. Kira Walsh has a knee injury, but is reported in a good place, though she wasn't available over the weekend. Aggie Beaver Jones has a foot/ankle injury, but is in team training, though she also was not available over the weekend. Good news on the Chelsea front. Hannah Hampton was back over the weekend, which is very exciting to see since she's been out since Arsenal played Chelsea in like, I want to say October. So, very exciting for Hannah Hampton to be back. Very good to see. Liverpool, Beata Olsen, who I mentioned previously, was not available over the weekend because of a small knock, which, like I said, is a bummer because she's really been their best player this season. I think she's dangerous going forward. You give her half an opportunity and she converts on a lot of them. That happened when she played Chelsea. It happened when she played Arsenal. So I'm impressed by her and hopefully she will be back with the team very soon. Man City, very good news for them. Mary Fowler is back in team training, though she's not fully into team training. She's in that sort of where Kadisha Buchanan is, like doing some team training stuff, still some individual stuff. But she tore her ACL last season, so very exciting that she is like on her way back. Other good news, Alex Greenwood, she was back before the break, but she's back and healthy and playing for City, and so that's always good to see. As far as not as good news, Aoba Fujina was not available over the weekend. They haven't said if this is sort of like a long-term thing or just right now. I think maybe they were still evaluating exactly what that looked like. For United, Ella Toon has a bone stress response in her hip and will be out for a few weeks. I don't really know what that means, but she's got some sort of like hip injury. So they're rehabbing and keeping her out for a couple of weeks, which is a bummer because United played Arsenal over the weekend and then the FA Cup games are this coming weekend, and then there's the semifinal against Arsenal. So like there are a lot of big games where they would, I'm sure, love to have her, and she is currently not available. So that's tough. Gabby George is also not available. She has a calf issue that'll keep her out for a couple of weeks. Leah Galton has an ongoing back injury that she just can't quite kick, so she is unavailable. And then I don't think I talked about this. This has been out there for a little bit of time, but Celine Bizet is out on maternity leave. She is pregnant. So that's very exciting. And congratulations to her. We love to see players becoming moms if that's what they want to do. She's relatively young, I think, in her mid early to mid 20s. So that's very exciting, and very excited for her as she just recently got married. So lots of exciting things going on in her life. That covers the WSL, but there are a couple of things that I want to talk about. Good news on the Barca front. Patrick Guijarro, they posted, I'm recording this on Tuesday the 13th. They posted today that she is back in team training after she had the like foot injury. So that's really exciting for them. Also terrifying that they're as good as they are even without her. And then Esme Brooks, Kika Nazare, Eva Payor, and Ona Batche are all back for Barca. They'd all been out for like varying degrees of time. They've all been back for a little while, some like in and out, but they've got most of their team back. Aitana Bonmati is still out with the like broken leg at the ankle joint. I think they're expecting not before like April for her. So it'll be a minute there. The last person I want to talk about is from the U.S. Women's National Team. So the U.S. Women's National Team still does a January camp, even though that's not an official FIFA window. And in that January camp, they only select players who are playing currently in the NWSL because they are in their like off season or headed into preseason as the NWSL season goes from like March to November. For the first time since I think April, Trinity Rodman is back on the US Women's National Team roster, and that is huge. So exciting. She is such a talented player, so fun, and I'm very, very excited for her to be back. They are playing two games at the end of the month. I don't remember who. I think Chile is one of them, and I don't remember the other team, but we'll talk about that when it comes. But it's so interesting because none of the European players are there, which includes Lindsay Heaps, who's the captain of the team. And this year actually also includes no Gotham players because Gotham is playing in this Champions Cup situation, which is like the winners of each of the like continental tournaments playing. I don't know. It's confusing. I don't really know where this tournament came from, but Gotham and Arsenal are both playing in it, and it is taking place like the 28th of January through the 1st of February or something like that. So no Gotham players can go to this U.S. Women's National Team camp either, as they are already in Europe training for this tournament. So it's like no Lindsay Heaps, no Emily Sonnet, who sometimes is captain, no Rose Lavelle, who's sometimes captain, no Naomi Gurma, who's sometimes captain because she's at Chelsea, no Emily Fox. Not that she's necessarily always captain, but I'm just going to take any opportunity I can to talk about her. So it'll be interesting to like see what's going on. Also, no Sam Coffey because Sam Coffey was in Manchester over the weekend. She took pictures with fans and they all got posted. Big rumor that she's headed to City. We'll see if that goes through. I really want her to go to Arsenal, but that's just me. Nobody asked my opinion, apparently. But yeah, so it'll be so interesting to see what Emma Hayes does with this group in January. We'll talk about that more, I'm sure. The last thing that I want to talk about is this ridiculous notion that Qatar is interested in hosting the Women's Club World Cup in January of 2028. And this is just absolutely mind-boggling to me why they're even entertaining this. First of all, Qatar don't even have a women's national team as they haven't competed since like 2012, I think is what I read today. I do recognize that they would be hosting a club competition, not a national team competition, but like it still feels relevant. I would want this competition to be hosted somewhere where they I don't care about women's soccer, care about their women's team, care about women in general. Like maybe we should start there. Women's rights in Qatar are barely a thing. They barely even exist, let alone queer women. And I highly suggest that you go and check out a video that my friend Allie Tom made regarding the queer rights issue and its intersection with women's soccer. It's definitely posted on her Instagram. I imagine she posted it on her TikTok as well, but she really discusses that in an important way, I think. So I'll send you there because she's way more eloquent about it than I could ever be. But I don't know. It's just absolutely ridiculous to me and has no business even being floated as an idea. And as you can tell, I can barely find the words to describe the ridiculousness of it. But I wanted to bring it up and talk about it on this podcast because, like, what the actual heck is happening? What are we even talking about? FIFA has actually lost their mind. I mean, we knew that. We knew that, but it's just so ridiculous. So, anyways, I think that covers all the things that I wanted to talk about today. Whirlwind sped through it, but there's just always so much going on and so many things to talk about. So let me know what I missed. What were you hoping I would talk about that I haven't yet? Do I need to do a mid transfer window check-in? Let me know. And yeah, I will see everybody next week.